Hello, friends. Welcome to the 7.34D tier list for position 4s tonight. Let's talk about what's good with the shitty ones first, of course, as usual. So, Enigma, this is the only hero in the pos 4 pool that I would consider to be in the shit dumpster tier right now. A couple of reasons for this. So, ever since they made his spawn Eidolons cost health and not deny creeps, his win rate has been dog shit. On top of that, the three most popular 5 positions that are pretty much going to be in every single game are Warlock, Vengeful Spirit, and Treant Protector. Hell, these heroes are even 4 positions. They're that good. All of those heroes, what do they have in common? Well, they're OP, but also they interrupt Black Hole through BKB. And 2 of them interrupt it even through a Lincoln Sphere. There's nothing you can do about a Chaotic Offering or a Treant ulti against the Black Hole. So this is pretty much the worst Enigma patch you can imagine. Getting into the D tier, there's actually not that many 4 positions in the D tier. A lot of heroes are currently viable for 4. A lot of them just got buffed. So starting with Techies, this hero has not really seen the light of day since they nerfed his laning a lot. Basically, when he got turned to be a universal hero, people realized, like, hey, you can buy a bunch of stat items on this guy, right-click people from the farthest attack range away possible, and spam his Q and pretty much win any lane. You can't do that anymore. They nerfed all of those things. They nerfed his attack speed. They nerfed his damage. They nerfed the damage on the Q, and his laning has really suffered. I also think that people have gotten a lot better at dealing with this hero, like right-clicking the mines when you drop them, as well as interrupting the suicide. People are using like movement displacement abilities to interrupt the suicide now. Speaking of suicide, Pudge, he can't suicide anymore with Rot. I don't know why the fuck you changed that, Gabe. God damn it, give me that back. But this hero has been not dog shit tier, which is great since they reverted his hook speed back to what it was when Pudge was in his glory days. However, with that being said, as a 4 position, you know, Rot still kills you. Your flesh heap, if you don't have a bunch of items, is not so useful. It's better when you have tanky items, so it's kind of 2 abilities wasted on a 4 position. His laning is not so good. He can sit in trees, be useless, and he can feed. But because of the hook speed, you always have that potential of just like outskilling the enemy team and, you know, hitting a sick hook. So it's not dog shit, which I'm more than happy about at this point. Tiny. I would consider this hero to be similar to Pudge in the sense that if you are good at Tiny, he has the displacement of the toss back, so he's always going to be just fine. I think his laning is a little bit weak. There was just a patch, so I'm not entirely sure what the strong offlane heroes are right now. Maybe if it shifts where it's a lot more ranged offlaners, Tiny is better, but the Beastmasters of the world don't really like playing with the Tiny as a position 4. And it takes a very long time to get to your Blink Dagger. There's not much of a way that this hero can farm it, and you really need the Blink Dagger. But like I said, if you're a good Tiny, you can play it on pretty much any patch. Mora, this hero got nerfed because Tundra won TI with it, and it's been nerfed ever since. They changed her to be a universal hero. But with that being said, her base attack damage is one of the lowest out of all of the universal heroes. I would surmise it's like bottom 3, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe editor can verify that here. Maybe not. I don't care. But yeah, it takes a little while for her to ramp up in terms of damage in the laning phase, and that's kind of not what you want out of your universal heroes. Arrow's not that good in the early levels. Her leap shard is pretty cool. I definitely like that. You know, the fact that you can control where your leap goes. Not as useless as the old Mirana shard, but it's also not that useful. So, yeah, this hero has definitely seen better days. Okay, moving on to the C tier. This is a lot of heroes, and with the patch that just dropped, I put some heroes from the B tier into the C tier due to nerfs. So let's talk about that. So first up, Shadow Demon. This hero, I don't think he got any significant nerfs, if any, in the recent letter patch. However, all of the really popular carries, the Sven, the Gyro, Phantom Assassin, all of these heroes got nerfed. PA and Sven in particular, I think their win rate dropped off quite a bit. And the reason that SD was being picked, or part of the reason SD was being picked and looked so strong, is because the way you play with those carries is you buff them with Solar Crest, drums, like all that shit, and Shadow Demon would just purge all of that off. So you could press the guy and then say, hey, focus this hero. And the hero likes to stack, and all of these carries that I mentioned that could be on your team enjoy taking stacks. So I think with the carry pool changing, SD to me dropped from like A or B tier to C tier, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm more than willing to admit that. Batrider, this hero with the letter patch didn't really change places at all. Basically, when they changed him to be universal, the hero became very busted. At the same time, they added a slow to his flame break, which meant that his level 1 laning was just fucking crazy. Like, you had a ton of kill threat. They subsequently nerfed the move speed slow on that, making it a lot less good at level 1, but he's still a universal hero, and to me, he's very similar to Tiny in the sense that you have this repositioning element that comes from the Flaming Lasso that is very broken. However, Batrider, as a 4, can stack for himself and actually farm stacks with Firefly. So I think Bat is essentially like a better Tiny right now. Lion, every single time I've talked about this hero, and pretty much every tier list that I've done on this channel, I say, you know, it's cool that he scales with his ult and you gain more damage the more fingers you get, yada yada, but his laning sucks. That's not the case anymore. His laning is actually not bad because his Q, I think they reduced the mana cost on it. They gave it a little bit more damage in the early levels, and the speed of it is very quick. It is very easy to secure range creeps with this, to catch people out, to hit multiple hero earth spikes. So I actually think Lion's laning is decent. And then outside of the laning phase, he's a decent stunner. He's an amazing stunner. The mana drain into your allies is something that I've not seen people abuse, but I feel like it's actually quite good with like Leshrac, Storm Spirit, these heroes that like to have mana. So Lion's decent. He might even be B tier, but people are just not playing a lot of him. Clinks, very similar to Batrider in the sense that when he got reworked where the Invis is now the ult, and he can eat creeps, and he has this Tar Bomb ability, he was broken. He was S tier. Since then, he's been nerfed quite a bit. But with that being said, he eats creeps. Beastmaster is strong. Enchantress is strong. Chen is strong. If you're playing against any of these heroes, you take away their most annoying component, which is the creeps. Tar Bomb is still good at laning. It does feed some stick charges, which I think people are learning to abuse now. But if you eventually get to the Solar Crest and the Nullifier and these sorts of items, Clinks is one of the best heroes at catching people out across the map. And the map is so fucking huge that a Clinks running around to these jungle camps on the sides of the map where the carries are going to be solo farming, you can actually snowball a game pretty hard with this hero. So it's decent. But with the nerfs, I wouldn't say it's like broken by any means. Snapfire. So I think this hero is just good with a lot of the offlaners, like these melee guys. Mars, Beastmaster, they really enjoy playing with the Snap. You can like Mars ulti into Snap ulti. You can win the lane with them by double nuking and pushing out the wave, abusing the cookie. But speaking of the cookie, since they nerfed the Aghanim Shard, the Mortimer's Kiss that comes from that cookie, the hero has not been S tier like she once was. Also, her scaling is a lot worse because they swapped the 20 and the 25 talent, so people are not really able to do that like late game Daedalus thing anymore. The timing is like very, very late, and it already was a very late game timing. So all of these things make Snapfire like not S tier anymore, but still very good. Nyx Assassin, when they gave him this Mana Flare or Warp Flare, whatever the fuck ability this is called, the thing that does a percentage of the damage that Nyx has done in like the last X amount of seconds, he was running around the map with Dagon just one-shotting people. And it's been nerfed since then. I think they took 5% damage off of that ability, which is definitely significant, but it still feels like he can one-shot people and be that annoying little ganker. I think when it was released, people thought it was S tier, or when it was reworked, people thought it was S tier. And then people realized that if the hero is snowballing, you can just build into an Eon Disc, and then it completely nullifies his snowball. So it kind of sucks to have a 4 position where you buy one item, and if they're having a really good game, they can't continue having that really good game, which I think really hurts the hero, but it's still good. You're still going to kill supports, but a lot of 4s do that. Clockwork, well, they made it so that his Q does a shitload of damage to creeps, so he can farm as a 4, and also he has something to farm for because the Aghanim Scepter is very busted. The shitload of rockets thing that he can do when he gets the Aghanims is one of the most annoying things to deal with in Dota, especially because the flare's slow now for whatever reason. His ult is on a fairly low cooldown, which I really think is important for picking people off. But with that being said, a lot of these offlaners don't necessarily want a Clockwork in their lane. I would say probably if you are a Clock 4 and you're a good Clock player, so you're playing it, you're going to end up cutting the first couple of creep waves and like play for kills. But it's a decent hero. Rubic, man, they massacred this hero. I would say Rubic is in a situation where if you're really good at it, then you can keep playing it. And what should you be good at? You should be good at stealing and utilizing the spells. So if you're playing against like an Earthshaker or one of these heroes where there's something specific that you can steal and do a lot of work with and you're good at that, then you can still play Rubic. But man, does his laning fucking suck since they nerfed Fade Bolt. The damage reduction on it at level 1 is pathetic. And when you compare that to Vengeful Spirit's damage reduction that she has on an ability that also minuses your armor and costs virtually no mana, etc., it feels like Rubic is just like a thrift store Vengeful Spirit at this point. Okay, Monkey King. I would also say this is a specialty hero. If you are a Monkey King player, it's a fine patch for it. I would say the difficulty in playing this hero comes from knowing when to go for like the Solar Crests of the world and play to be a traditional support, and knowing when Diffusal and potentially like a Scotty, Gleipnir, like these sorts of items, scaling items, when you should go for that. Also, you have to be really good at sniping couriers and being a nuisance around the map, putting deep wards down, doing the kind of complicated stuff, because I think you are risking getting owned in lane by picking this hero, and that is very game losing right now. But like I said, if you're good at it, you can play it. Invoker, I think Invoker's literally glitched right now, by the way, so maybe by the time this video gets edited, it will be fixed. But EMP currently, I think when you get the Aghanim Shard, it doesn't give you any mana, which is weird because that's one of the best things about this hero is that EMP shard that pulls people in. But I will say, like, Invoker generally is just an S tier hero. He did just get nerfed in the letter patch, but I still think that the fact that Solar Crest is very strong, Spirit Vessel is a very strong item, Invoker's a universal hero, you know, they reworked all of his stuff, so Cold Snap heals, and, you know, his orbs give him spell lifesteal, cooldown reduction, these sorts of things. Like, I think the hero is still incredibly good, but as a 4 position, he's lower tier than he is as a mid laner. His mid laning is still insane. Keeper of the Light, this hero got a lot better as a 4 position when they made Chakra Magic give you more cooldown reduction when you use it on yourself. Obviously, if you're playing with like a, you know, Bristleback or something like that, then it has no effect because you're going to be spamming that on them. But generally, you know, even if you use it every now and then on yourself, you do feel the effect of that. It means you can like blast out the lane a little bit more, use your W a little bit more. But yeah, if you're playing it in a role like a 5 position where you're going to be using Chakra on other people, obviously this change has no effect, but it made him a little bit better of a 4 than he was before. Moving on to the B tier, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of heroes in here because there's a lot of viable fours, like I said. So, Hoodwink. She's good because they gave her attack and cast range on Scurry, which means it feels like this Bushwhack is fucking connecting on you globally. Quite annoying. Also, it works with her ult and Solar Crests and everything, so it's very powerful. And in the D patch, they made it so that Scurry lasts for 5 seconds, and remember, this is an ability that has 2 charges, so that's a 2-second buff rather than the 1-second buff that it looks like. So Hoodwink, very viable. Ethereal Blade build is sick, by the way, if you are snowballing. Io. I think that the patch definitely favors Io in general because there's a lot of harass lanes coming out. If you're playing into like a Warlock where these fucking imps won't stop running at you and doing damage to you, it feels really nice to have an Io just sitting there and healing you through all of it, and then Warlock feels like a pathetic loser, which he is. It's also a good disengage patch. If you can reload somebody out of Chrono, out of Warlock ulti, out of like a Sven who had just pressed God Strength, all of these things are incredibly game-winning. Even if you don't reload them out, if you just turn the fight by tethering in Holy Locket and Mech, that's also a really good way of winning fights, which is very powerful right now. Shadow Shaman. The win rate's not so good in pro-level pubs right now, but to be fair, the patch has been out for a day, and not that many people are playing this hero. I think this hero is low-key broken, though, because Hex has never been a good ability at level 1. Now it is. The duration is great, and it gives damage amplification. Like, it's kind of insane that they just straight up added 20% damage amp to that ability when it already was good, in my opinion. But his Shackles also is very strong for laning. It does a lot of damage. It heals you. The amount of times I've gone on this guy and he turns and he shackles me and he heals to fucking full HP. It's very annoying. He has high base damage. He's good at pushing towers. He's good at taking objectives like Roshan with the Serpent Wards. And the Aghanim Shard is great. It's good for farming. It's good for killing people. Shaman, good hero. Skywrath Mage, another hero that does not have the most glorious win rate right now in pro-level pubs, but I refuse to believe that with all the top teams picking this hero, and with, you know, Legion Commander, Beastmaster, these heroes who have great setup for Skywrath Mage, I feel like Sky is good. He's very good. He does a shitload of damage. The silence is super effective against a lot of heroes in Dota. But I think where people run into issues with Sky is that everybody just rushes Atos, which, in my opinion, is not always the build. If you have setup, you should be going for like a Veil. If you don't have setup, then the Atos is very good. Sometimes you can just free ball it. I don't know what free balling is, but it sounded fine. So you can just, you know, throw all of your abilities. You don't need any setup in some games. I think the itemization is where people struggle with the hero, but in any case, it's a good hero. Tusk, he has been good since his Icy Hands ability that I always forget what it's called, Tag Team, of course. It has a passive attack speed reduction, which means Tusk is even better at trading than he was before. And yes, he is a melee hero, and yes, a lot of offlaners are melee and don't like playing with melee heroes. However, I don't think Tusk plays exactly like a normal melee, because 2 brawlers getting in there and then using the tag team is actually good. And Tusk also has all of these spells. He's more of like a spellcaster, similar to Earthshaker. So I don't think the melee with melee thing is as bad with something like a Tusk. Phoenix, if you have good egg protection heroes, Axe, Beastmaster, Mars, which also these heroes are very good at laning with Phoenix. Like if you, and they're also just very good heroes in general. If you have these heroes, then Phoenix is amazing right now. People are going for a straight up Hex Rush build, and I think that this is some new tech, relatively new tech, that has changed the hero quite a lot. It made people essentially realize, like, hey, because this hero turns into an egg in fights, you don't really need items. You can just kind of build whatever's necessary for the game, and sometimes that's a Hex for just picking people off, and having the ability to do that is very broken. Grimstroke. Well, Pango's still OP, despite the 8 nerfs, or 8 patches of nerfs in a row. He's still OP, and Grimstroke with his ult counters that hero, which is great. But the big reason why Grim is OP right now is because of Inkswell. You can now press a button and the Inkswell pops automatically, which cancel TPs, which you couldn't do before. It means that when you get the Aghanim Shard, you can pop it to dispel somebody whenever you want. And then also a lot of the time when you Inkswell and you run at somebody, they just run away from you. So that going to 5 seconds and then stunning after that is kind of like, it gave you extra disable in a way, because it kind of fears people just because they run away from you. And then that means that the next Inkswell is up in less time relative to before. Yeah, lots of reasons this hero is very strong. Also very good with these melee offlaners. Weaver. Just about the best Solar Crest builder in the game, and this is an OP item. Also, Spirit Vessel is a very good item. Diffusal is a good item. You can build into a scaling build on this hero. Even if you go for a Solar early, if the game's going very well, a Solar Diffusal Weaver can solo kill carries. With that being said, Sakuchi is a very long cooldown at level 1, so I think that's like his biggest flaws. The early levels, you have to be quite careful. With that being said, though, the Geminate attack damage is noticeable. That he just got this buff in the letter patch. It does a shitload of damage, especially if you go for like a Blightstone into Medallion Rush. It's super good at laning. Pugna. My voice cracked. We'll go ahead and edit that one out there. Semper Pi. Edit that out. I'm firing you. Pugna is generally just an S tier hero because of the building damage change that they gave him in 7.34D. However, I think it's probably a better mid, because the tempo that you can make the game go at with this extra damage, as well as the buffs to his Q that he's gotten previously in terms of damage, it does like 340 damage at max level now, which is insane. The tempo is nuts. Like, there's no way of stopping this hero from taking all of your towers. With that being said, like I said, as a 4 position, it's a little different. You're not getting the levels that you would on the mid lane, but when you do get the levels, I think you max the Q now, and it's good. It's solid. They buffed his ult a little bit too. He's not that healing sucky suck guy anymore. That's cuck behavior, guys. Don't do that. You're a damage dealer now. Nature's Prophet, he's been getting a flurry of nerfs, but he was so good on the previous patch that even with the nerfs, I don't think that he's bad. He's still a great solo rusher. And people are getting a lot better at like picking heroes and playing around, like keeping people in the sprout. I think the best Nature's Prophet players right now play like the best Monkey King players, in the sense that you TP in. Well, Monkey doesn't TP in, but he jumps around the trees. But you put very deep wards up and anticipate where the enemy carry is going to be farming in these like side camps. You set up wards and then you gank people. And I think if you can abuse that, the hero is going to be viable in a big way, as long as he's not a dog shit support. As long as he's playable from the support role without griefing. The warding element to this hero is just nuts. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the meat and potatoes. Why do people say that? Of this tier list with the A tier. So, Earth Spirit. This hero is OP. He can roll through Black Hole. He can roll through Chronosphere. He can roll through damn near anything. And that makes him very annoying, very hard to catch. Dodge projectiles and everything with the W, which is on an incredibly low cooldown. If your game is going very well, you can go for an Octarine Core. People are skipping boots entirely on this hero. Vessel's a very good item. He's one of the best Vessel builders in the game. He's a great ganking hero. If there's some SF or Sniper mid, you can absolutely feed off of them, or like Alina, something like that. But I will say that it does take quite a lot of skill still, even with how overpowered it is. You need to be good at it. Muerta. A lot of people are spamming this. And the funny thing is, like, I would say the only change that I could see that was significant in the most recent letter patches is that if you kill somebody in her W, you now get an extra ghost going around the ring around a Rosie there, which to me doesn't seem that significant. But I think people just discovered that she has good spells. This hero, you get the W, you put it down. It's kind of like an ultimate ability in a basic ability, which every hero who has something like that is always OP. And people are straight up just building carry items from the 4 position if the game is going remotely well. I mean, you can still go for the solar ether lens, that sort of thing, and it's good. But I've even seen like Monkey King Bar, Daedalus, scaling items, maybe starting with the solar just so that way it's like kind of, you know, normal items at first. And even if you don't go for damage items, her ult still full to zeros a lot of people if you can just get them like in a stun and in the W. So Murata, I think people are just realizing is a good 4 position. Earthshaker. Probably a better core hero than it is a support, but just so incredible in general that it's an amazing 4 position. Ever since they made the fissure range longer and the aftershock range bigger, it's way easier to connect spells onto people. And once you eventually do get the Blink Dagger, he's the best group fighter in Dota right now, I would say. You can just solo win group fights. The Aghanim Shard allows you to kind of play from the back lines and not get countered by the heroes that would previously counter you, like the Clockwork and Rubic type heroes, where they can steal fissure or, like, you know, hook you and interrupt all of your abilities over and over and over again. Like, you can just play from a distance and not have to get in there, and that's very strong. You can always win lanes too. You just fissure the lane back. So Earthshaker, very solid hero. Vengeful Spirit just got nerfed. I had her in S tier previously, but with the couple of nerfs that they've done to her in the recent patches, I do think that she has fallen out of favor a little bit. Her win rate has dropped in pro level pubs. However, she was so OP before with the fact that her W gives damage reduction, minus armor, deals good damage for low mana cost. Her stun is on a low cooldown. Her ult, especially once you get an Aghanim Scepter, you swap somebody in. It's like a Pudge hook, except low commitment, because if they kill you, then they're killing a hero with damage reduction that just respawns anyway. So Venge is still OP. Bane. This is... Okay, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and put him in B tier. And the reason for that is because B is for Bane. No, I'm just kidding. The reason for this is because I am anticipating that PA, Gyro, Sven, these heroes are all going to fall off. There's going to be new carries in the pool. And I think these carries were so OP that having a hero like Bane that could walk into lane and enfeeble them, it felt like the only way of properly dealing with them and shutting them down. I still think these heroes are going to be decent. I don't think they're going to completely fall off, so I think Bane is still good. And, you know, Fiend's Grip is still an amazing ability, especially when you get the Aghanim Scepter. And Feeble is still an amazing ability. You can still get a Vessel and kill people with the Nightmare from full HP. So I still think Bane is good as a 4 position, but I think Bane was like A or S tier previously out of necessity because of these carries, and I hope that these carries will fall off. Maybe that's Copium. I don't think I've ever done that before in a tier list as movie hero, but I realized, like, the patch just came out and I had not adjusted for Bane. But anyway, still decent. Spiritbreaker. Speaking of the patch just coming out, they just gave him 5% more damage at all levels on his bash, which makes his laning better, it makes his charge better, it makes his late game when you have the Aghanim Scepter, the Octarine Core, all of this crazy shit makes that better because you're able to one-shot creep waves at an earlier point than you were before, which is extremely important because it means that you're not sitting there hitting every creep once, which lets people kill you. Spiritbreaker is very solid and has been solid since the map got bigger, because there's all of these jungle camps. There's so many places to farm. It's very difficult to catch a carry who's just farming solo. But guess who loves when people are walking around solo? Spiritbreaker. More than any hero in Dota, other than maybe the S-tier heroes. Speaking of S-tier, there they are. There's only 3 of them. One of them is interesting, and the other 2 you probably could have guessed. So let's talk about Willow first. So in the most recent letter patch, they increased the Bramble Maze cooldown from 20 seconds to 22 seconds. This is fairly insignificant. What makes Willow strong right now is the fact that she's a universal hero, so her laning is amazing. You can throw Bedlam on an ally now, which means if you're playing with like a Legion, Beastmaster, any hero that wants to get in there, you could full to 0 people with that without getting yourself killed. There are 2 very strong builds on her. There's going for the Aghanim Scepter, Octarine Core, and going for all the talents for her W and playing around that, doing a shitload of damage, having almost permanent uptime on her W. And then there's the Cursed Crown build, where you're just putting down metric fuck tons of brambles, forcing enemy carries to BKB when they don't want to. Both of these builds are good. Both of these builds are viable. I think the good Willows can figure out when to go for either of them. Treant Protector, he got like a bunch of nerfs in the most recent D patch, but none of them were very significant because the win rate only dropped by like 0.5% when it was 57% in pro level pubs as the second most picked hero in the game, which is absolutely not okay levels of win rate. So why is the hero so strong? You put Leech Seed on somebody, it feels like anybody attacking that hero is fucking immortal. He's an amazing Solar Crest buyer, and that's the most OP support item right now. The Q now is treated as trees, so you can use it to like walk across places and maintain your invis from the Aghanim Shard, which by the way, everybody is rushing. His ult counters all these like BKB carries, at least until the late game, where carries will have like Manta Styles and stuff, but you're forcing people to build items that they don't necessarily want, which is really nice, and then you're just a treant who's building support items anyway, and still supporting your team and winning the carry-to-carry matchup because you have living armor, they don't. And then you can also Solar Crest the guy that you living armor and just make them fucking immortal. Tree is nuts. He also has 100 base damage at level 1. That's not okay. Bounty Hunter. This is actually an interesting hero. This is my S tier prediction right now. People are spamming the crap out of this hero in pubs. The win rate is like 56% in pro level pubs, which is incredibly good. His Q, they've buffed this ability so many times that it is now actually good for spamming in lane and dealing damage. And that's on a hero who, his W already is very good at spamming in lane and doing a ton of damage. And one of the most annoying things about a bounty hunter is that you need your sentry wards, which are limited in the game, to de-ward into ward camps. Otherwise, you lose lane. So there are not enough sentries on the map, unless your 4 position literally isn't buying them, to have sentries in the lane to deal with this hero walking through the portal and then killing you with the blood grenade, the stun on his invis, which by the way, it stuns in case anybody forgot about that, and then like an orb of venom. So his laning is insane. His ganking is the best in the game currently. He's an amazing Solar Crest buyer. You get some kills and you get track gold. You snowball the shit out of the game. He's really good at finding heroes on the map and the jungle camps that carries are going to be solo farming. I think any hero that can do that is very strong right now because people just play the map. It's very hard to like lock down the map and force the enemy team into their base. So having a hero like BH that can run around, snipe chickens, kill people, find people is very, very strong. Anyway, that's it. Here's the tier list. See if I can get this out of the way. Fuck, dude. Whatever. There's the tier list, guys. For everybody to skip to the end. Goodbye.